come on the program and talk about what's going on in their community. So far, we have a number of reporters from communities that are around the metro area, and I won't disclose exactly who they are yet because we're still trying to firm up some of those plans, but certainly look forward to that as well in the new year of 2011. So we have a lot to cover in this program. We have a little information that we want to discuss with regard to safety on the trails and talking about maybe what are some of the different types of ways to make trails more safe without a lot of cost. Because obviously trails are important, safety is important, but you have to be able to balance how much money you spend for how much safety you get. And then, of course, we also then want to talk about the big topic, which is the fate of the Maplewood Citizens Forum. So first, though, let's get started and talk about this issue about trails and safety. So I know, Mr. Bradley, that this was one of the issues that, of course, that you've been monitoring, that you've been looking at, and certainly with regard to the fact that there's been a fairly serious accident on a local trail here. I think this has really brought more awareness to this issue.
It also has brought us into the understanding of where we have to take a look at where we're spending our money. There is a rational way of doing it and an irrational way of doing it, and right now I'm finding that a lot of things that should be taken care of in a lot more progressive way are being, it's like we're throwing so much money at it. I mean, I'm looking at over on Century and 36 there, they are building a trail. It's going to be an overpass there. They haven't even decided what they're going to do with 36 and Century as far as the highway goes. But the overpass looks like it's going to at least be over $100,000 to put it in, just because of the heavy construction. It's been all summer. They're not complete with it yet.
Well, you know, this issue has come up in many different times, certainly not just today because of a result of this accident. And of course, this accident was, there was an article about it in the Maplewood Review just recently. And so if you would like to read more about it, certainly there's a whole article about the accident itself and what happened and that kind of thing. But the issue itself remains and will remain in the future. And certainly I know that in Maplewood here, during that time when there were various proposals having to do with the Gladstone redevelopment process and talking about the intersection of the trails there in Gladstone and how to have safe passage for bicycles with that redevelopment. That was part of the discussion that they had there.
Right, but the thing is that what we're finding is there's a couple of problems we're having at the present time. We're having the problem of courtesy of the riders, as well as the courtesy of the drivers who are driving the roads that the trails cross. But more importantly, what we have is we have a park group that seems to want to push the issue, where it would take a little common sense, put a couple rumble bars in front of a bike trail that crosses the road, and make sure to put warning signs on that area would guarantee the people in their cars would slow down. But parents, I don't know how many times I drive down certain roads that have the bicycle trails, and you'll see a little child that'll be left all by his lonely, waiting for his mother in the middle of the road. In the middle of the road. And the thing is that under state law, all bicyclists are supposed to stop at the corner of a road, get off their bikes, and walk across the road. So a child standing in the middle of the road is obviously the parent has missed some of the training he's supposed to, or she's supposed to have had.
Right. Well, and certainly the parental guidance of their child to help to have them understand what the rules of the road are. And your idea, though, about having these rumble strips a certain amount of feet back before you come to that trail crossing that crosses a road, you know, that's a great idea. And certainly that's something that would be conducive to in the winter time when you've got to snow plow that road. And, you know, I think it would certainly work. I mean, it works in other instances to alert people when there's a stop sign coming up.
I know all the schools use it. In fact, North High has it all around North High to make sure that the kids aren't going too fast. And it seems to work just fabulous. I still have a boy that's at North, so I'm fully aware of what happens up there.
You know, I had the opportunity a few years ago, especially when we were in the height of talking about the Gladstone redevelopment, of trying to figure out ways to make the area around the roundabout there in the Gladstone area, how to make that more safe for bicycles and pedestrians to cross when they're trying to cross from one part of the intersection to the other when you've got a roundabout. And I was talking to an individual in Arizona where they actually specifically work with cities and municipalities that have these roundabouts in exactly that kind of issue. And one of the things that struck them when I was describing to them how ours was designed is that they said that the areas where you can cross for pedestrians or bikes, that actually in Maplewood is much too close to the roundabout, that it actually should be further back from the roundabout, and that one of the methods that they use very successfully in California, for instance, to allow bicycles and pedestrians to cross even many lanes of traffic, is that they use what they call these bollards, which are like poles of different color, and then they have the metallic striping around them so that way you could see that you are coming up to something where you have to be watchful of pedestrians or people on bikes. And I asked him, I said to him, I says, yes, but we're in Minnesota here and we have snow. So those are going to be a big inconvenience when it comes to the wintertime. He said, well, they're designed especially as well for communities that have snow, because how they're designed is that they have a big, it's like they screw into the pavement, into the ground, because there's a method by which you sink the other part of the screwing mechanism into the street or the pavement, and then each year, then in the spring, your public works people go and screw them back in, and in the fall before snow, they screw them out. And that actually they've got it designed so that actually the public works people themselves can install them, and so it's very easy. And he said that they were only like about $150 a piece, and you can even get ones that aren't necessarily just you know, solid, but you can get ones that are actually flexible, so that if you have a flexible one, that if it accidentally gets hit by a vehicle or something like that, it just goes down like that, and then it's easier to replace too, see? So there's different kinds, different colors, different ways you can have them marked. And that was actually an idea I brought up to the council, but Public Works and the council, they said, they just basically looked the other way. But there are ways that are cost effective to alert drivers, bicyclists, and pedestrians of how they're going to have to be watchful of each other when they interact.
Well, as far as that goes, if they are looking for the cheap way out, I believe that the golf courses also have a screw-in system for when they're trying to put in their golfing, where they're going to launch the balls from.
Oh, really? Okay.
So they could always get those balls from there if they're really cheap, because I mean, I think most golf courses have those, and they could get those real cheap.
Right, exactly. But you see, this brings up a really good arena for citizens to discuss these kinds of options with their elected officials and the top administrators of their cities. And so whether or not we're talking about Maplewood with regard to trails and safety on trails, it could apply to any community in this whole, well, the whole state.
That's true. In fact, what we're discussing right now is being discussed in the whole state, because the fact is, it is being pushed through by a federal program that is giving money, matching money to create these bicycle paths. So what we're seeing here is also being seen as far as Duluth and down as far as Rochester right now. So it isn't just exclusive to us in Maplewood.
Exactly, exactly. So anyway, I think we'll have more to certainly look at with regard to this issue. Oh, and I should mention that for those folks who use the trail by County Road D and McKnight, there is indeed now a little signal there to alert people in their vehicles that there is a crossing there, and it is a solar powered light on this signal, so that way it blinks, and so you know what you're coming up to.
I never knew that. I thought that was supposed to be a bicycle, was a bus pickup for the students. So this is something I just learned. Let's put it that way. I did know that they had a bicycle trail there. I really wasn't aware of where it was. And in fact, that brings us to an issue that we've discussed once before, which is White Bear Avenue and County Road D. And if you haven't been aware of it recently, go down in that area and realize that they're going to be expanding it, taking away about 3 extra lanes, which means that if there's a place that you would want to have a bicycle overpass, couldn't afford to build one that big, but if you could afford it, I think that'd be where you'd want it. But it's going to be interesting to watch the bicycle people try to get across that intersection.
Well, you know, that is a really good observation, because when you're deciding how to have your overpasses, you would think that you would want to have these overpasses in areas where the traffic is very heavy and that you've got many, many lanes that's a bicycle or a pedestrian would have to cross. And originally, I think it was around the time when the mall was being developed and that whole area was being developed, originally there was, my understanding is that there was a plan to have an overpass over White Bear Avenue so that folks who were on the east side of White Bear Avenue could easily and safely get across to the west side where the mall was, but that because there wasn't enough money, that never got built. And I have heard from many of the seniors that live in various cottages on east of White Bear Avenue that that's something that they wished had gotten into the plans, because wouldn't that be wonderful? Because whether or not if you're walking or you're biking or you got one of those little motor scooters, you know, you'd be able to go across there and not have to worry about whether or not you're going to make it over before the light changes.
Well, I was one of the people that was actually pulling for them to take out that County Road D light. So I'm kind of a curmudgeon, you might say, on this one, because to be honest with you, I had a car accident when I was a young man, and I'm no longer young, but when I was about 25, well, let's say about 35, I had a car accident down there that totaled my car then. I thought it was a crazy area then. It's gotten no better since then. And the reality is that if we take the light out and just make it where it's a pass-through, it would allow traffic a lot easier flow. It would make it easier, and you wouldn't have to add all the extra lanes we are adding at the present time. And it really wouldn't change the effect to either the business on either side, because of the people who want to go to Best Buy are going to get to Best Buy no matter what, but they can always turn into the mall and come back to Best Buy that way if they're coming from the south going north. But if they were coming from the north going south, they could just take a right-hand turn right off the highway or right off of White Bear Avenue onto it. So to me, as far as I look at it, I thought that they really spent a lot of money for nothing. But that's me being miserly again and a curmudgeon. And I got to ask the audience, what would you think about spending over $1 billion for an area like that, having people now try to cross in their wheelchairs and their prams and also their bicycles at street level, and now you've got not the 5 lanes we're talking about, but we're talking about 7 to 8 lanes now that they're going to have to try to...
including the turn lanes, yes.
Right. And that's what they're going to have to try to compete against. And we put an extra almost, I don't know how many millions of dollars is in there, but it's just outrageous when you think about it.
Right.
Wouldn't it have been better just to take the light out?
Well,
That's my